Good evening, everyone. I'm Apostle T.B. Walker. Certainly glad to have you here. It's Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening. It's 5 o'clock, so I know you know exactly what time it is. It's time for Live at 5. Listen, I'm certainly glad to be here once again to answer some of these questions that you guys have given me. So it's certainly my honor to be able to do that, to be able to give you an answer to some of those questions. So I'm going to get directly into the questions that you guys have actually sent out to me. Question number one says this: since Israel is God's chosen nation, would it be fair to say that God is on the side of Israel in this conflict? Well, let me just start out by saying this. God is the one who determines who his people are. It's not by geography. It's not based upon, some person, who's on the land at that time. Maybe a conqueror may have come on the land. It's not who's on the land at that period of time that determines, whose land it is or who Israel actually is. It is God who actually created the nation of Israel, who were not a people. And God reminds Israel of that constantly, is that, there was a time when you were not a people, and that, I made you a nation. I made you a people. And the same way that God chooses us out of the world, he chooses Israel, out of those who call themselves Jews. God begins to pick those and determines himself who Israel is, who is really Israel. Remember in Revelation chapter 3, I believe it is, where he talks about those people who are of the synagogue of Satan, but they said that they are Jews. Now, the fact that a person makes a declaration that they are Jew is in no way meaning from the biblical perspective that they are Jewish. Let me just tell you this. This is what God said about Israel. He says, if you will indeed, and I want you to hear that this is a conditional agreement here. It's a conditional covenant. It has conditions that are connected to the promise. He says, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. Now, the key here is understanding that covenant breaking forfeits covenant promises. That's one of the conditions here, that you got to keep my covenant. You got to obey my laws. Both Israel and Palestine are two Christ rebelling nations. Neither of them have a claim on the land. Neither of them have a claim on calling on the name of God, in that name has no Christ connected to it whatsoever. Listen, Israel was chosen by God from all the peoples of the world to be his focus, right? He is determined that they were going to be the focus of his blessings and of his redemption. And because the scripture says this: the Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possessions out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Now, that's what the scripture says. Not only that, but remember this: God actually promised Israel the land that is being presently disputed. He is giving that land to them from the time of Abraham on. He says, this is the land in which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, I will give to your offspring. So that promise that God made actually was climaxed in the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Once the Messiah has come, then the great promise that was waited on was not just the land. It was the king of that land, who was Jesus. By not receiving Christ as their king, Israel is actually operating in treason. They're committing treason against their God. They're committing treason against their king. And a people who are in treason against their king cannot have any legitimate claim on the king's promises. Yes, I'm not on. Okay, I have my phone. Let me see. In stream.